A building code, building control or building regulations, is a set of rules that specify the minimum standards for constructed objects such as buildings and non-building structures. The main purpose of building codes are to protect public health, safety and general welfare as they relate to the construction and occupancy of buildings and structures. The building code becomes law of a particular jurisdiction when formally enacted by the appropriate governmental or private authority. Building codes are generally intended to be applied by architects, engineers, constructors and regulators, but are also used for various purposes by safety inspectors, environmental scientists, real estate developers, subcontractors, manufacturers of building products and materials, insurance companies, facility managers, tenants, and others. Codes regulating the design and construction of structures were adopted into law. Codes in developed Western nations can be quite complex and exhaustive. They began in ancient times and have been developing ever since. In the USA, the main codes are the International Commercial or Residential Code (ICC), IRC, electrical codes and plumbing, mechanical codes. 50 states and the District of Columbia have adopted the I codes at the state or jurisdictional level. In Canada, national model codes are published by the National Research Council of Canada, and then adopted, in whole or part, or copied and modified, by each province or territory. Other codes may include fire, health, transportation, manufacturing, and other regulations, regulators, testers such as OL, underwriters labs. In essence, they are minimum standards of design and implementation. Designers use building code standards out of substantial reference books during design. Building departments review plans submitted to them before construction, issue permits, or not, and inspectors verify compliance to these standards at the site during construction. There are often additional codes or sections of the same building code that have more specific requirements that apply to dwellings or places of business and special construction objects such as canopies, signs, pedestrian walkways, parking lots, and radio and television antennas. History. Antiquity. Building codes have a long history. The earliest known written building code is included in the Code of Hammurabi, which dates from circa 1772 BC. 228. If a builder build a house for someone and complete it, he shall give him a fee of 2 shekels in money for each sar of surface. 229. If a builder build a house for someone, and does not construct it properly, and the house which he built fall in and kill its owner, then that builder shall be put to death. 230. If it kill the son of the owner, the son of that builder shall be put to death. 231. If it kill a slave of the owner, then he shall pay slave for slave to the owner of the house. 232. If it ruin goods, he shall make compensation for all that has been ruined, and inasmuch as he did not construct properly this house which he built and it fell, he shall re-erect the house from his own means. 233. If a builder build a house for someone, even though he has not yet completed it, if then the walls seem toppling, the builder must make the walls solid from his own means. The Book of Deuteronomy in the Hebrew Bible stipulated that parapets must be constructed on all houses to prevent people from falling off. Modern era. After the Great Fire of London in 1666, which had been able to spread so rapidly through the densely built timber housing of the city, the Rebuilding of London Act was passed in the same year as the first significant building regulation. Drawn up by Sir Matthew Hale, the Act regulated the rebuilding of the city, required housing to have some fire resistance capacity, and authorized the City of London Corporation to reopen and widen roads. The laws of the Indies were passed in the 1680s by the Spanish Crown to regulate the urban planning for colonies throughout Spain's worldwide imperial possessions. The first systematic national building standard was established with the London Building Act of 1844. Among the provisions, builders were required to give the district surveyor 2 days' notice before building. Regulations regarding the thickness of walls, height of rooms, the materials used in repairs, the dividing of existing buildings and the placing and design of chimneys, fireplaces and drains were to be enforced, and streets had to be built to minimum requirements. The Metropolitan Buildings Office was formed to regulate the construction and use of buildings throughout London. Surveyors were empowered to enforce building regulations, which sought to improve the standard of houses and business premises, and to regulate activities that might threaten public health. In 1855, the assets, powers and responsibilities of the office passed to the Metropolitan Board of Works. The City of Baltimore passed its first building code in 1859. The Great Baltimore Fire occurred in February 1904. Subsequent changes were made that matched other cities. In 1904, a handbook of the Baltimore City building laws was published. It served as the building code for 4 years. Very soon, a formal building code was drafted and eventually adopted in 1908. In Paris, under the reconstruction of much of the city under the Second Empire, great blocks of apartments were erected and the height of buildings was limited by law to 5 or 6 stories at most. Types of building codes. The practice of developing, approving, and enforcing building codes varies considerably among nations. In some countries, building codes are developed by the government agencies or quasi-governmental standards organizations and then enforced across the country by the central government. Such codes are known as the national building codes. In other countries, where the power of regulating construction and fire safety is vested in local authorities, a system of model building codes is used. Model building codes have no legal status unless adopted or adapted by an authority having jurisdiction. The developers of model codes urge public authorities to reference model codes in their laws, ordinances, regulations, and administrative orders. When referenced in any of these legal instruments, a particular model code becomes law. This practice is known as adoption by reference. When an adopting authority decides to delete, add, or revise any portions of the model code adopted, it is usually required by the model code developer to follow a formal adoption procedure in which those modifications can be documented for legal purposes. There are instances when some local jurisdictions choose to develop their own building codes. At some point in time, all major cities in the United States had their own building codes. However, due to ever-increasing complexity and cost of developing building regulations, virtually all municipalities in the country have chosen to adopt model codes instead. For example, in 2008, New York City abandoned its proprietary 1968 New York City Building Code in favor of a customized version of the International Building Code. The city of Chicago remains the only municipality in America that continues to use a building code the city developed on its own as part of the Municipal Code of Chicago. In Europe, the Eurocode is a pan-European building code that has superseded the older national building codes. Each country now has country annexes to localize the contents of the Eurocode. Similarly, in India, each municipality and urban development authority has its own building code, which is mandatory for all construction within their jurisdiction. All these local building codes are variants of a national building code, which serves as model code proving guidelines for regulating building construction activity. Scope. The purpose of building codes are to provide minimum standards for safety, health, and general welfare, including structural integrity, mechanical integrity, means of egress, fire prevention and control, and energy conservation. Building codes generally include standards for structure, placement, size, usage, wall assemblies, fenestration size, locations, egress rules, size, location of rooms, foundations, floor assemblies, roof structures, assemblies, energy efficiency, stairs and halls, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, site drainage and storage, appliance, lighting, fixtures, standards, occupancy rules, and swimming pool regulations, rules regarding parking and traffic impact. Fire code rules to minimize the risk of a fire and to ensure safe evacuation in the event of such an emergency. Requirements for earthquake, hurricane, flood, and tsunami resistance, especially in disaster-prone areas or for very large buildings where a failure would be catastrophic. Requirements for specific building uses, energy provisions and consumption. Grandfathering provisions. Unless the building is being renovated, the building code usually does not apply to existing buildings. Specifications on components. Allowable installation methodologies. Minimum and maximum room and exit sizes and location. Qualification of individuals or corporations doing the work. For high structures, anti-collision markers for the benefit of aircraft. Building codes are generally separate from zoning ordinances, but exterior restrictions may fall into either category. Prescriptive versus performance. These requirements are usually a combination of prescriptive requirements that spell out exactly how something is to be done, and performance requirements which just outline what the required level of performance is and leave it up to the designer how this is achieved. Historically, the requirements are reactive. When a problem occurs, the building codes change to lessen the chance that the problem ever reoccurs. In recent years there has been a move amongst many building codes to move to more performance requirements and fewer prescriptive requirements. Traditionally, building codes were short, simple interrelated sets of rules. They generally included references to hundreds of other codes, standards and guidelines that specify the details of the component or system design, specify testing requirements for components, or outline good engineering practice. These detailed codes required a great deal of specialization to interpret and also greatly constrained change and innovation in building design. In recent years, several countries, beginning with Australia, have moved to much shorter objective-based building codes. Rather than prescribing specific details, objective codes list a series of objectives all buildings must meet, while leaving open how these objectives will be met. When applying for a building permit, the designers must demonstrate how they meet each objective.